Everyone, it's Dr. Beard, joined by...
I'm Paul.
Yes, and today this episode is about signs you are in an abusive relationship with your healthcare provider, the system, what have you.
Yep.
And many of you may recognize these signs immediately because maybe you've been in an abusive relationship in the past. Maybe some of you haven't, so this might be new to you. And maybe you're in one that you don't even realize. So before we get started, you know what we got to do.
I don't take nothing that a doctor don't prescribe. I don't do no drugs, man. I don't do no drugs, man. I don't smoke no bud, man. I don't do no drugs, man. It angers up that blood, man, so I don't do no drugs.
All right. So this content is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended to provide medical advice or to take the place of medical advice or treatment from a personal physician. Got to get that out of the way. All right. So, Paul, you have your list. I have my notes.
Well, we've been wanting to do this for a while. Obviously, this is going to be a little bit more about COVID just because it's applicable, but we really wanted to focus on this before of how the current medical system can be an abusive relationship. And like you said, most people don't realize it.
For both patient and physician.
Yes, exactly. And the purpose of this podcast really is to we're trying to get you to think, to change the paradigm in which you see how your medical care is delivered to you.
Well, your relationship with it.
Yes.
It's a mindset.
Yes, and then the first part of that, and this is what this podcast is about, is to realize you're in a bad relationship. Mm-hmm. Until you realize that, you're probably not going to change it, because that's our whole focus of this, is to get you into a self-care mode as opposed to outsourcing everything. So the government came up with 15 signs that
Well, this wasn't the government. This was...
The government is an abusive spouse.
That doesn't mean the government came up with that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. According to psychologists, from the Mental Health Institute, there are 15 signs you're in an abusive relationship.
Yes.
Okay,
so this is, and it was very, as we went through these, it was like, wow, this, not only is this for the medical system, but it's kind of put a magnifying glass on how the response has been to the COVID situation.
Yeah. And the caveat of this is when we say medical system, it really is intertwined with the government because they're huge.
Because they're one and the same.
Yeah, Medicaid,
Let's
Medicare.
Let's not act like they're two different entities.
Yeah.
They are the same thing.
Yes, and then big pharma, and then of course big media is not going to go against big pharma
because they're all it's all one big incestuous family. You have to understand that. All the top, everybody
sits on everyone's board.
It's a little family, and you are not in it.
Right. I mean, over a third of the revenue comes from big pharma, so you're not going to hear the truth. But let's go through these signs to see if you can pick up that this is their bad relationship you are in with your healthcare system.
Yeah.
The first one is they stop you from seeing family and friends.
Okay.
Well,
all right, let's start right there. Okay, how does that apply to what's going on right now? What are they telling us? Stay home.
cancel Christmas.
Cancel Christmas. I'm sorry, you can't see your family. It's too dangerous.
Except if you're a politician, because every single time they've put out one of these mandates, they have lied and done the thing.
There's a bunch of hypocrites.
Gavin Newsom closed the restaurant.
Okay.
Went to French Laundry. Oh, by the way, his winery is still open.
Yes.
The
Okay.
restaurant. So it's different rules for them.
Absolutely. Rules for you, not for me. We see it all the time. Nobody should be surprised at the hypocrisy that they've been seeing, and surely you've been seeing it because it's everywhere.
But they're using their medical muscle to say you should not see family and friends through the government.
And they're being very selective on the medical experts they use. Whatever ones are going to feed the narrative, that's what they're going to do. But yeah, so right now, the medical system, it's the government is using these medical experts in the system to push this. Right. But it's, they, like we said, cancel Christmas. Sorry, not going to happen in my house.
Number 2, won't let you go out without permission.
I mean, some of these poor nursing home patients can't even leave.
I'd break my mom out. My mom's 90 in great health, but if I cannot imagine allowing a loved one to die alone.
That to me is so cruel. You don't even know how long these people have left. Probably not a lot, since they're in a nursing home. And so the last days are going to be just one of loneliness and misery. And it's heartbreaking to me, because I know I have friends who do have parents who are in the nursing home, and they've not even really been able to see them that much.
And we know it's not about their health, because they've crammed COVID patients into the nursing home, which has been killing them at a higher rate than they should ever.
So many of them have died in the nursing home.
So complete hypocrisy.
So they won't let you go out without permission.
Yep.
And you could even take that a little bit further, because they're placing restrictions on who can be who can be in your home, who you can associate with, who you can even have in the room with you when you're in the hospital. Mm-hmm. There are first-time parents out there who the husbands can't even go in the room with their wife to see that ultrasound for the first time, and man, that's just taken away some memories.
Definitely an abusive relationship.
Yes.
Number 3, tell you what to wear. I cannot go.
Wear your mask,
Folks,
even though it's not doing anything.
The masks don't work. Studies have come out from, and we'll get into this in a second about things they squash, but they don't work.
Yeah.
The studies have come out from the Netherlands. They squashed that story, of course, which we'll get to in a second. But they don't work. Your eyes are still exposed.
There's so many things about this, and they're making matters worse. Mm-hmm. Like that study you had mentioned, 6,000 plus patients were involved. 6,000. That's a lot. That's a lot of people, and it basically showed no difference. And like you said, the eyes are a great source, for the vector to enter. And nobody's addressing that. And what are we doing walking around in the stores? Everybody's got their mask on, and they're touching it, and then they're touching stuff around them. Then they're touching their eyes, and they're wearing that mask. It's never been cleaned. And then, first of all, these masks weren't supposed to be used without sterile technique. Look it up. I can remember being in the OR scrubbed in. And if your hand got close to your mask, that surgeon literally would stop what he was doing, nod at you until you get the hell out.
Yep.
And go scrub back in.
Because that mask is to prevent you from spitting or...
Yeah, it's more for keeping bodily fluids out of your face, mm-hmm. and maybe and to keep the surgeon's dip that they've got in their mouth from going into the sterile field.
Yeah, and preventing you from...
It was never for viral protection. That is insane.
Yeah, the reason they send you out, you touch your mask, you've contaminated your
You've
mask,
contaminated
your hands.
You've contaminated... Just one touch, boom, you're out. You got to go scrub back in, and that's a big ordeal. So, anyway.
Fun fact. During the pandemic of 1918, what killed the most people?
Bacterial pneumonia.
Correct. And what caused that?
The masks.
Yes.
Come on.
They won't even go back to this, but during the pandemic flu of 1918, it was secondary infections that killed the vast majority of people because they were wearing masks all the time, and it developed fungal infections, bacterial infections.
You breathe out waste products. Mm-hmm. You can't hamper that.
Oh.
And we're starting to see patients who are, a lot of people who have to wear them all the time. They're getting sinus infections. They're getting, starting to have a lot of lung infections, bronchitis, breakouts all over their face. And it's completely worthless. It's all unnecessary.
Yep.
What we are doing. But it drives, the narrative, which is, I'm like, what is the end goal here? I think we kind of know, but we'll move on with our next sign of an abusive relationship.
Number 4, monitor your phone or your emails.
Okay, so how many of you, every time you get on there, you've got the COVID messages that pop up? Mm-hmm. And you're scrolling on social media, COVID messages pop up. You get emails, you get texts about COVID all the time. And now we have these, they want you to download these apps so they can trace you.
We know they're monitoring already just from marketing purposes, so it does not...
Well, that's not so much the medical community.
Right,
That's big tech.
That's not much of
which are one and the same.
It's an arm of it, exactly.
Right.
So it's not much of a stretch for them to monitor that to see what we're doing.
Right.
Control your finances or won't let you work.
You cannot make this up. If you're not deemed essential, and I don't know who the heck gets to determine that. How dare somebody tell me that what I do for a living to feed my family is not essential?
The chances of an infection from a small business is less than Walmart, Target, Costco, all these.
But they've
places.
already said that the majority of the infections, now this is what they say, are occurring within your home.
Because it takes a lot of exposure.
Time, face-to-face time.
Viral
but
load.
definitely, you got people wearing the mask, touching them, everything in Walmart. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It's a complete joke.
I know. So, sorry guys, I know your business is about to go under, but you're not essential. But Walmart is.
It's virtue.
Target
It's
is.
virtue signaling and conditioning you for compliance.
And for those of you who live in Arkansas, I don't know, a lot of you might not be aware of this, but the head honcho of the Economic Task Force for this response to the COVID pandemic, who do you think that is, Paul?
Ooh, let's guess. One of the Waltons?
Yes, Mr. Stuart Walton of Walmart is the head of that.
There's no conflict of interest there.
Can you believe this? That is infuriating to me. And my business didn't get shut down, thank God, because we're telemedicine and we're way ahead of the curve. But I do have friends who have had huge hits to their business and they're struggling.
They're picking and choosing winners and losers.
And they're selling a lot of the same stuff Walmart gets to sell without any issue at all.
Yep.
Oh, good grief.
Number 6, control what you read, watch, or say. This is the scariest of all of this.
This is super scary.
I mean, every time I'm on Twitter, I see a Dr. Oz tweet, one of him explaining I spent time in the OR and my O2 levels are fine with a mask. Well, good for you. That's only one part of what we're talking about.
What were your blood gases like? And in fact, I've seen research that completely can't.
Exactly.
Watch your language. You're going to have to
sorry.
bleep that out.
Okay, I'm so angry at him because
I know.
He gaslights this as I'm a concerned person.
But he never gets censored. But by my vitamin C post on my Facebook page got censored and taken down, and they had the nerve to ask the people if they wanted to continue to follow me because I was posting misinformation on vitamin C.
The scariest thing is they were squashing peer-to-peer medical advice, and they were censoring it. Folks, here's the chain of events. In the spring, there were protocols that were developed that were very, very effective against COVID, and they were completely squashed.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it was political because Trump mentioned HCQ, so they squashed it. But there were other therapeutics that were being used.
Zelenko's protocol. Thank you, because I've used it now on patients and have had excellent results with it.
They squashed it. They vilified it. They created a false study. Not only did they censor,
They do this all the time.
They said, HCQ is dangerous because we did a study on it. Well, it's been out for 75 years and there's been billions of doses, so they're lying.
Yes, there's people taking it all the time for lupus and malaria all over the world.
The Zelenko protocol is 200 milligrams for 5 days.
Of HCQ.
Of HCQ. That's 1 gram. The study they did to disprove how dangerous HCQ was, 2.5 grams a day for 10 days. That's 25 grams.
Yes.
A 25 times difference, and that's what they use. Hey, folks, it's been retracted now. The AMA, who was censoring
the American Medical Association, which is a political group that I am not associated with, and 90% of the physicians are not associated with. They are a very small group, but they are very loud, and it comes across as like all physicians are part of this group, and that is not the case.
About a month ago, they came out very quietly and go, we were wrong about HCQ. They should have made a big splash out of this.
They kept it on the down low.
It was not our fault. So they are controlling what you read, watch, say, and they're also manipulating what you read.
Yes, because if you do, like when I was doing some research for some other podcasts that we have coming up, and you can't even use Google anymore. It is a joke.
It's just
if you want to find the truth about anything with healthcare or medicine, It might be on the 17th page of your Google search. I don't know. But I was so frustrated because I was like, oh, this is all the usual suspects, all the Mayo clinics, the Medscape, MedMD, or what are the other ones?
WebMD.
WebMD comes up, and they're all lockstep with what they say, and you just, because I tell my patients to, like, do your research, but then I'm like, don't do it on Google, and it's hard to know who to trust, who to depend on. But I know that it's not going to be found on the first search, the first page of a Google search.
No, it's very.
I know where to go. I know who to trust now. I have been following certain people for several years, and they have always been pretty much proven to be right. Even when they go against the grain, against the narrative, they always end up being proven right. So I go with the people who have good track records.
Yeah, and then there are white papers out there, scientific white papers that are good, but they're so complicated the average person cannot read them or glean anything from it.
Yeah, and most people are just reading headlines and they're not digging down into the actual studies. If people would, but it takes so much time.
I wish
There's
I could.
so much information.
In fact, there was that one headline they were pushing. The story was actually confirming something else, but they ran a headline.
I don't know. There's so much of that going on.
It was like you just contradicted yourself, yet you're using this as a proving point. It's just like, but people read headlines, they won't do the research.
We're in an information
vacuum.
Well, warfare. It's I'm right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. But and when you find yourself in this, you almost become paralyzed as, who do I trust? And again, this is where I would tell you to don't go with the mainstream narrative, please, and start searching into other. There's no harm in listening to other opinions.
Well, mainstream medicine does almost nothing for preventative care. So why would they do it here? It's just not in their. They don't do it.
And I certainly don't take to heart what people say when these same people have been wrong time and time again. Why do you keep going back to them as a source of information when they're wrong all the time? That's some weird Stockholm syndrome going on.
It is.
I don't even. I mean, you can be wrong a couple of times, I guess, but after that, I am done and I'm moving on, and I have my sources now.
And they never admit when they're wrong. They just keep.
I know they keep doubling down and gaslighting and pulling all kinds of shenanigans, and they're good at deception.
Oh yeah.
They're very, very good at it.
Just like an abusive relationship.
Just like an abusive relationship, absolutely.
Number 7, monitor everything you do. Well, that's high. That's the big tech. They use it mainly for marketing, but it's not going to be much of a stretch for them to use it.
Well, they're using it right now for COVID.
Yeah.
The tracing apps.
Yeah.
You download the app. We can trace you. We can get better control of the virus, Paul. If you just let us know where all you're going, who all you're seeing.
And they do that by that test that's completely useless. Folks, they have that test. The COVID test is set
The
to a
PCR test.
PCR test is set to a threshold that is so
high
that it picked anything, a can of Coke.
Everything's going to be positive.
A pineapple it was
A
positive.
can of Coke.
Yep. I mean, it's
What
completely.
what was that fruit that they use? One of the presidents of one of the African countries
It was like a mango or something.
tested a goat and some type of fruit.
And they both tested positive.
Yeah, and it came back positive.
So it's worthless. So
So
that's the monitor.
so all you hear about, at first we were hearing about hospitalizations, right? And then they changed it to cases.
Well, first it was ventilators, and then
We
needed the ventilators.
So now it's all about cases and
Flatten the curve.
and 5 million days into flatten the curve.
Well, that's the next one, number 8, is punish you for breaking the rules, but the rules keep changing.
Yeah.
First it was 15 days to flatten the curve. Now it's wear your mask for other people, not for you.
I will never give the government 15
No,
days
they
of my life
lied.
ever again. Didn't even want to the first time because I knew what was up. But, I was like, okay, whatever. I'll see what happens. I knew better.
They lied, and now they lied to all the rest
You know
of
why? Because I've been in an abusive relationship.
Not with me, folks.
No, not with Paul.
I'm a sweetheart. They put they punish you, the restaurants. You got to close. You can only have 10%, but we'll allow you to dine outside. So all the restaurants spent thousands of dollars
to buy those heaters that go outside, to buy the tents
Yep.
to go outside, and they're like, nope, can't do that.
Change that rule.
Yeah,
Move the goalpost.
I mean, can you imagine being a restaurant owner in this mess?
No, I would be going crazy.
I don't know how they haven't just gone postal on people.
Andrew Gruel, the guy from
California, yeah.
God bless him. He's speaking out, and he's speaking the truth.
I know.
He's
I hate it for him. Gosh.
But number 9, they tell you for it's your own good, and they know better. So
Okay, now this one can apply to pretty much the typical physician-patient relationship of today.
Can I improve my cholesterol by changing my diet? No, you need to take a statin.
This is the one that really gets me, because doctors are there to counsel you, advise you, give you their professional opinion. Hopefully it's based on a lot of experience, and to kind of lay out the pros and cons of various treatments and strategies to overcome whatever issue it is. They're not there to dictate that you must do what they say. And I see a lot of this going on today. It's been going on a while. Doctors have always been this. It's kind of like this paternalistic relationship with their patients. You know, I'm the know-all. I know everything. You must listen to me. You're just a simpleton. You know, you need to do what I say, and that. You know, they try. When I was going through medical school, that was we're trying to get away from that. Mm-hmm. Well, that ain't working, because as soon as you, and a lot of you probably have encountered this, I know I have, as soon as you push back on what the doctor is recommending, it often turns very confrontational.
Well, you just hit number 10 and 11, is that they don't allow you to question it, and if you do, they tell you you're crazy and no one agrees with you.
And that, how many of you have been told you're crazy? I know a lot of women have. When your lab results come back normal, the testing is normal, and you still have these symptoms, and the doctors, can't figure it out. So he either calls you crazy, puts you on an antidepressant, or refers you to a psychiatrist. I can't tell you how many times or how many stories of this happening to patients that I've heard. It's happened to me too.
Well, the doctor will not believe. I'm like, doctor, the medicine you're giving me...
It's not that they don't believe.
Well, they're saying...
They don't know what else to do.
Well, my mom has complained. Fortunately, she just quit the medicine, but she said, my mom's 90 and is only on one med. She should be on none, but we're still fighting her on that. But she was on a med that was not making her feel good, and she complained to the doctor, and the doctor said, it's like basically tough through it. It's more important.
Toughen it up. Yeah, tough.
It's like, I'm 90, and this 300-pound doctor that was coaching my, telling my mom what to do. My mom's 90, jumps up on the exam table. This lady can't even, see her toes, much even jump on anything. And she's still just harping on my mom about, you need to do this. If you need, I want to keep you healthy. And my mom's like, I'm healthy. You're not. You need to do what I do, which is exercise. Move.
And not take a bunch of pills.
Yes. And they will not. They're caught in that.
Didn't she fire her doctor?
Yeah, she told her to go.
Instead of her doctor firing her, she fired her doctor.
She goes, I will not acquiesce to your request, and I'm out of here.
Good for her. And that's what a lot of you might need to consider doing. Not that you're going to go find another doctor that's going to do anything differently, but at least you might find one that's not so confrontational and has this idea in their head that they're God, because there's a lot of godlike there's a lot of doctors walking around with some God complexes. I've been around them. I know them. I know the strut, the hall strut that they have, and they don't know everything. How many times has the medical system been wrong?
Forever.
How many things have they been wrong about? How many lawsuits have been filed against Big Pharma for their pharmaceuticals?
How many lawsuits have been filed against them for covering up information?
And that's the big one, that they actually knew their product was bad and they covered it up.
Can you turn that off?
Okay.
No. The far right. I'm cooking.
All right.
All right, thanks. Yeah, they covered up and
Or the food pyramid,
completely wrong.
smoking. Remember that? Picking
Doctors prefer
Lucky, was it Lucky Strikes or what?
It might have been. I have to look at those. It's back in the 50s, but it just shows you that for a price, people will push anything.
I mean, the food pyramid, pushing margarine, Diet Cokes on diabetics.
Carbs for diabetics.
Carbs for diabetics.
And they're still doing that, folks. They're still telling people to eat grains, and it's like if you're diabetic, you need to be looking at minimal carbs. They won't tell them that.
The nutrition advice being given today has gotten a little bit better, but there's still such a long ways to go. And it's it's all the influences. Mm-hmm. The food industry has definitely got their hands in it. I mean, when you have Coca-Cola and Monsanto as your big supporters for the American Dietetic Association, you've got some big problems.
That's
right
the game.
there.
Exactly. Who the heck would allow someone that they're against to sponsor what they're doing? That's so ridiculous.
I know, that's why I'm not a dietitian anymore. It was ridiculous. I couldn't do it. It's also why I'm not a part of mainstream medicine anymore. I've seen the light.
Number 12, call you names or shame you for being stupid or selfish. That happened to me yesterday. Folks, I don't wear a mask when I go out, and I had to get a saucepan from my mom for Christmas, so I had to go to Williams and Sonoma. Made it about halfway through, but when I asked for them to go get the pot in the back, then they said, you need a mask. And I was like, oh, shit. So I wore it. But I didn't want to put it on first.
Because it was for your mother, and you're like,
I had no other place. I had to get this. But I took it off, and then after I got my saucepan, I took it back off. And the lady was like, cannot believe you did that. It's like, it doesn't work, folks. It's just a joke. This is a submission issue. This is not a health issue. You're just being selfish. You're stupid. You don't know anything. I was like, well, I'm an engineer, and my wife's a doctor. But
I think we got it covered. And knock on, we haven't warned them since it all started.
And there are a lot in the medical community, well-meaning nurses and doctors that are just as aggressive out there, shaming people.
But there's a lot of them that know better. They just don't want the confrontation. I know I have several friends who are physicians and nurses. They hate it. They know it's not right, but they're afraid of the confrontation. I'm not afraid of it.
No.
I have no problem walking up into Walmart, Target, whatever, without a mask on. And somehow, maybe it's a look I have on my face. Maybe I've got like this warpath look on my face. Like, don't even think about saying anything to me. But so far, I've not had any confrontations, other than that incident that we had in Basalt, Colorado, at the bike shop. I
just walked out.
That was the worst one by far, and we were just like, okay, screw you, we're out of here.
Yeah, little punk bike mechanic was smarter than me. He's lucky I didn't jerk a knot in him.
Well, so they call you names or shame you. And how many of you have heard, oh, you're a science denier, you're anti-science? Well, first of all, the science is never settled. Okay? Never settled. So that's pure nonsense. And the doctors, I've heard some things, some stories from some of my patients who their doctors have been anything but professional with them, and have said some really sarcastic, horrible things to them. And I'm like, please tell me you're not going back to that. What? You don't have to. Don't submit yourself to that type of treatment. Again, the doctor is there to advise and counsel, not force you to do what they say. Now, it is up to the doctor does have the ability to say, you know what, if you're not going to do things my way, then you can go find yourself another physician. And there are times when that is appropriate. And there's times when, we've had to have some hard discussions with some of our patients who did not want to do what we said, but kept on complaining about the lack of results.
Well, there's a little trick you can do also.
But I was like, if you feel that way, go somewhere else.
My mom, before she fired the fat Russian, she wanted to be good, but the cardiologist had put her on a dose that was
The blood thinner.
There's it made no sense.
It was $400 a month. $400 a month.
But even then, there was a difference. At least the fat Russian was like, this is way too much for your weight. The cardiologist came down on the Russian and said, no, she needs to be on this. Well, the chart says, I don't care what the chart says. This is what I want. So I just told my mom, said, just cut it in half, throw out the other half, because they're going to monitor.
Yeah, the pharmacy will, they'll know.
Right.
You know.
And then she did that for about a month, and she said, you know what, my AFib's not come back. I'm not going to do it.
Right.
So she just quit it altogether. Guess what? She feels great.
And she's she's feeling better, and because she's been doing a lot of the things that we've had her do, and so she's on a pretty good trajectory right now at 90 years old.
And she turns 91 in March, folks.
I know.
Gaslighting you, challenge your memory of events, and make you doubt yourself. I cannot tell how many times we'll see something on the news. He's like, okay, what are they? It'll make no sense until the next week, because they're prepping you to put a thought in your mind, and then they finish the thought the next week. It's so insidious.
Well, this is let's pull it back from the media. This is about healthcare.
Well, I'm talking about medical things.
Yeah, but in the physician's office, it's even they make you doubt yourself. Did you really experience that? Are you sure? Are you sure you did that? Are you sure that's really? Are you sure that happened to you after you started that medication?
You sure you don't feel good?
You sure you still feel bad? Are you sure that happened? And they'll make you doubt yourself sometimes.
You probably already felt bad. You just don't remember it.
Yeah, I mean, and so that's one I have encountered myself as a patient. Questioning what I was telling them from my personal experience, and they just could not believe it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, I don't know what else to tell you. And they'd keep asking me in a different way, and I'm like, you're going to keep getting the same response. This is what happened to me. Okay, so keep asking away, but you're wasting your time. You're not going to get a different answer. And I know that you are perplexed and you don't know what's going on and don't know what to do. And I'm sorry that your medical education failed you in that regard, but this is what it is.
Well, then that falls into 14, which is they dismiss your opinions. So
yeah.
They're just going to say, well, you're just wrong.
I mean, I get my opinions dismissed as a physician, not even as a patient. So I'm like, if I have physicians who are dismissing my opinion, and it wasn't even an opinion, it was what happened to me after I received the immune response invoking injection for the flu, and what happened to me after that.
We cannot say.
And because you were with me.
Yep.
And I was telling some colleagues about my experience, and these are people who just don't get it, all right? They're still, pharmaceuticals are fantastic, they did not believe me. And they were like, well, I'm sorry, they was basically said, well, I'm sorry that happened to you, but, and they just did not want to believe that happened to me. And then I started telling them about this also happened to some other patients of mine, and this happened to my family member after this particular injection, and this happened to my friend after this particular injection. And it was just like blank stare. I don't know what to do with this information. You could just see that it was just like
does not compute.
We'll dismiss. And so that was very, and even when I tell my experiences to other healthcare professionals, it's like they just dismiss what I've said. And I'm like, I'm giving you firsthand accounts. It's insulting to me.
Well, if things go wrong, it's your fault, folks. That's number 15. They play the victim, and if things go wrong, it's your fault.
You just don't have any willpower.
Or you did something wrong. You didn't take your meds right. I followed protocol, so it must be your fault.
Yeah, you're just non-compliant, or the best one. This one's used a lot when things just aren't going as according to what their big pharma journal said. It's your genetics. It's just your genetics, I'm sorry. You're going to have to deal with this. I'm sorry these pills aren't helping. It's just your genetics.
We're going to spend a little more time on that one because
That's a big, gigantic
lie.
cop out.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that genetics do not play a part. They absolutely do. But your genetics are not static. You are not doomed because of your genetics. Your genetics can be turned on in a good way or be turned on in a bad way, depending on the environment.
Right.
What you're exposed to, your exposome. Okay, that's the word for your environment and all the inputs, whether it's your diet, the stress, the toxin exposures. All those things are playing with your genetics all the time. And it's either your genetics are either going to be expressed in a positive way or a negative way. And it depends on your exposome.
Right. And so they want to cop out and use that as their excuse when things don't go right.
Because they don't know what else to do.
They don't look, though, because they've
not been trained to.
They've not been trained to, and the insurance company's not giving them enough time to. So again, this is when we say
Even
it's one
if
big medical incestuous.
But even if the insurance gave them enough time, they don't even know what to do because they weren't taught what to do. They were not taught to look at root causes.
They were not taught critical thinking.
No, and that's everybody thinks that doctors are some type of genius people. These people, and I'm not saying there aren't some very smart doctors. There are. There's some very high IQ doctors, but that doesn't necessarily equate to critical thinking skills sometimes either, because doctors are really good at memorizing and regurgitating a lot of information.
And that is modern medicine.
That is not critical thinking. That is just rote memorization.
You have this symptom, I'm going to give you this pill.
We memorize all this data, a lot of it's just big pharma curriculum. Mm-hmm. We memorize all these facts and we're tested on them. And it's how well we can memorize and regurgitate these facts.
Right. And folks, when we talk about this...
Or when I say facts, and you know what I'm talking about.
When we talk about this abusive relationship, this is for chronic conditions. This is for your wellness, your overall health trajectory. Modern medicine is great at acute care. You're an ER doc also.
Yes, and thank God for all the advances in technology and pharmaceuticals that are truly designed for those acute, emergency, urgent issues. It saved a lot of patients' lives.
And same thing with emergency surgeries.
But a lot of times we're getting these emergencies that should have been, things turned into an emergency because the chronic care was so poor.
Right. But we don't want to vilify all of medicine.
No.
There are parts that are good.
Yeah, the ICU, those ICU docs, man, those are some smart docs. Those are guys that they're considering all kinds of things at one time when it comes to keeping you alive. And hats off to you guys.
The purpose of this podcast is to get you to think by correlating this to an abusive relationship. And I'm hoping you can see after these 15 points that there are a lot of things that overlap with modern medicine and an abusive relationship. We want you to change the way you think.
It's just a mindset.
Yeah. Our philosophy, and you'll be learning more and more as you follow our podcast, is self-care is the beginning. Your self-care is what you should be doing, and
that should make up the overwhelming majority.
That's your nutrition,
of your care,
your exercise, your sleep, your stress, the avoidance of toxins, all these things that you can control. The next level up would be a functional medicine health coach who helps you put it all together. If you still need help for something chronic, then you go to a functional medicine doctor. If you break your arm, that's when you use...
Yeah, you might want to go to the ER for that, So it's
almost like there's a tree of self-care, functional medicine health coach, functional medicine doctor, and then there's a separate branch over here
for preventative diagnostics and acute care urgent issues.
Yeah. And so
we'll talk more about how to use the medical system to benefit you and not to harm you. Mm-hmm. That's another podcast that we'll do. But the take-home point is I really want you to reconsider your relationship with the system, your physician. And if you do feel like some of these points ring true for you, some of these signs, then I would strongly encourage you to find either my preference is a certified functional medicine MD.
Yep.
Those guys know the inner workings of the system. They've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and now they've been introduced to a whole other way of treating the patient that works. So they understand a whole lot. And then if you can't find that or you don't have access to that, then there are plenty of MDs out there who might not be certified functional medicine, but they at least they advertise that they are holistic, alternative, integrative. And so they are actually willing to look outside the box and look at root causes. And that's been my experience when I have interacted with these physicians, is that they're very similar to functional medicine doctors. They just don't have the in-depth knowledge of a lot of things that we have. But they do a very good job.
Yeah.
They can.
And if you have applied self-care to yourself, you're going to make their job
much easier.
Because if you're doing everything wrong, you're starting from scratch.
Yeah.
But if you're doing self-care principles, which we'll be going over ad nauseum over the next few months, you will advance your care, save yourself money. And that health coach, which is kind of the intermediate layer between your self-care, they're there to help you. It can be overwhelming. It's not bad to have someone help you. Sometimes an objective accountability. Even you've used a health coach when you've
Yeah, you need a set of eyes outside.
Yeah, yours was more
looking in.
Yours was more for dealing with stress because
mine was I had an imbalanced life.
Yeah,
I was work, and very little time for play and creativity and the things that brought me a lot of joy. And so I had an imbalanced life, and Annie helped me a lot with that, and to kind of peel back the layers and why was I even doing that to myself, So I'm a big fan of health coaches. I think they have helped so many of our patients, and our patients have said so. They appreciate that service.
I think what sets our health coaches apart is that faith is such a big part of what we do for self-care. And unfortunately, a lot of functional medicine doesn't get into that. They're kind of in the...
They walk all around it.
Yeah, they'll embrace Middle Eastern or Native American, but Christianity, that's just this fairy tale.
Yeah, they will even kind of make fun of it sometimes. I've been to these conferences where it was like, ooh, what's going on here?
The power of prayer is real.
Absolutely.
And it'll help you with an abusive relationship, because you need to first recognize where the problems are.
Yeah.
And that's the purpose of the podcast. We want you to leave today to question, look at what your health care is, what's being offered to you, and pray about it. And are you in an abusive relationship? And if you are, get out of it.
And then also you have to understand that the majority, 90% of your health depends on what you do, not what your doctor does. So stop outsourcing your health to a system that really is only going to offer pills and procedures for your symptoms.
You say cut, burn,
and prescribe. That's what they're going to offer you. So stop outsourcing your health to them. You have the ability to heal yourself if you give your body what it needs. You can do that.
Absolutely.
And we see it all the time, and it's wonderful when we empower our patients with that knowledge to do that, to take care of themselves.
Well, folks, we appreciate you. We hope that you'll get out of your abusive relationship.
If you're in one.
Come to the light. Well, if you're embracing modern medicine, you probably are.
Yes. Unfortunately.
Come towards the light, folks. We will be seeing you again soon. We very much appreciate you.
Yeah, and if you're not already, please follow us on. We've got our YouTube channel, which is where we post these videos.
Amy Beard, MD.
The podcast is on Spotify, iTunes, and then you can follow us. Follow me at Amy Beard, MD on Facebook. I also have an Instagram account that I do a little bit with, and we don't do much on Twitter just because it's Twitter, and we end up arguing with people all day long. At least Paul does. So anyway, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much. And we'll be bringing you some other episodes very, very soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I don't take nothing that a doctor don't prescribe. I don't do no drugs, man. I don't do no drugs, man. I don't smoke no bud, man. I don't do no drugs, man. It angers up that blood, man, so I don't do no drugs. I just take Paxil, Xanax, Zoloft, Flomax, morphine, Valtrex, Flonase, Plavix, codeine, Zyrtec, Zoma, Zantac. Tylenol,